Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. If you are watching the evening show, which starts at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, then awesome. If you're watching the daytime show, which starts at various times depending on what's happening in the news, then that's awesome as well. But either way, you should find me wherever you want to find me, whatever platforms you use, Rumble, X, YouTube, BitChute, all the various networks, all the various areas where the show's broadcast. You can find all those, plus my websites, plus my socials, and even my sponsors. You can go to jdrucker.com/find, jdrucker.com/find. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America. You're listening to the JD Rucker Show. Let's begin. Man, what a time to be alive. Praise God that we are living through these crazy times. Everything is going crazy. Politics, culture, faith, finances. Oh my goodness. Liberation Day is absolutely decimating everybody's sanity. You thought I was going to say stock market. Oh, no. Stock market is going to do what the stock market's going to do. I've got plenty of cool stuff on today's episode to talk about regarding the stock market. But latest from President Trump a couple hours ago, almost 3 hours ago, President Trump posted on Truth Social, said yesterday China issued retaliatory tariffs of 34% on top of their already record-setting tariffs, non-monetary tariffs, illegal subsidization of companies, and massive long-term currency manipulation, despite my warnings that any country that retaliates against the U.S. by issuing additional tariffs above and beyond their already existing long-term tariff abuse of our nation will be immediately met with new and substantially higher tariffs over and above the initial set. You know, I have an odd superpower, and I shouldn't say odd and I really shouldn't say superpower because I think a lot of people can do this, but I have a tendency I can track sentences and I can tell run-ons versus regular. This sentence by President Trump, as long as that was one sentence, by the way, and it is perfectly grammatically correct. Awesome. Just saying. Therefore, if China does not withdraw its 34% increase above their already long-term trading abuses by tomorrow, April 8th, 2025, the United States will impose additional tariffs on China of 50% effective April 9th. Boom. You know, we weren't calling it a trade war. It's a trade war, and it's an awesome trade war. I know. Look, if your business is affected by this, if you're, I don't know, whatever it is, I feel sorry for you. I don't want to be all giddy and about this trade war, but man, this is so necessary. It's not even funny, and it's great having a president that doesn't just say, you know, I'm sure you all remember the good old days when President Dementia Joe, you know, and even his protege Kamala, you know, they'd ask him, the friendly legacy media would ask, they're all serious, you know, what are you gonna do with Iran? You know, what's your message for Iran if they're rattling their sabers, or what's your message for whoever? And always be like, you know, Joe would get serious. He'd just say, don't. That's it. That's the message. Just don't do it. We live in a different time. President Trump is a different president, and he doesn't just say, don't. He actually engages in actions. and he's fast, and he doesn't have to go through committee. He doesn't have to have a study done by 6 different departments. He just does it. And it's funny because it's not like these aren't thought out, and it's not like he doesn't get any what's the word for it? It's not like he doesn't. Sorry, I'm getting text that just totally distracted me. My mistake. It's not like he comes across as if it's quick and whimsical, but there really is a lot of forethought to it, and there is actually a lot of strategy involved with this. Let's continue, because that was only part of the post on X. Let's keep going. Additionally, all talks with China concerning their requested meeting with us will be terminated. Negotiations with other countries which have also requested meetings will begin taking place immediately. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I mean, look, you can dislike Trump all you want. You could love him all you want. I am thoroughly entertained and often impressed. And I don't want to put anybody on a pedestal, not Donald Trump, not Elon Musk, not anybody other than Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior. But I will admit that there are times when I do feel like it is a true blessing, just even from an entertainment value, to watch these guys cook. They know how to cook. Throw Tom Homan in the mix there as well, and you have arguably the most entertaining administration that we've had, at least in my lifetime, by far. Not even close. There's not, I guess, between the three of them, you can say there is certain entertainment value to RFK Jr., I guess, but let's see who else. Tulsi Gabbard's pretty boring. Kristi Noem is pretty boring. Pam Bondi is pretty boring. Howard Lutnick, he's okay. You know, he's entertaining from a different perspective. Always reminds me of Maury, I think is the character's name in Goodfellas. Don't go down there. Scott Bessent, extremely boring. Wow, hard to listen to. Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter. That's not why. That's not why you guys tuned in to today's episode of the JD Rucker Show. You want to see what else is happening in the world, and of course, today is going to be a tariff day. I want to see because there was actually quite a bit on his timeline, President Trump's timeline already. He did have, and that was hilarious. By the way, I'm not going to play it because we're sticking with the tariffs. But he had the Dodgers, the world champion LA Dodgers in town, and he said, there's a couple of senators here. I'm not going to introduce them because I really don't like them. Everybody started cracking up. Let's see. There's the China Post. There's a video about rates plummeting. That's showing how oil prices are going down, being positioned as a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon who you're listening to. Legacy media, bad thing. Bad. Oil prices low, bad. Yeah. Let's see. More video. A lot of people are happy. Of course, there's going to be people that are sad. And again, if you're watching CBS or CNN or MSNBC or any of those guys, they're all going to paint this as horrible, horrible, horrible. You know, oh, look at the stock market. It's almost as low as it was under Joe Biden in mid-2023. They don't actually say that. They just talk as if this is the worst stock market crash in the history of histories. The universe has never seen anything that even comes close to this. This is so catastrophic. I mean, this is as if you took the stock market and you divided it by 0. Yeah, they are unhinged. All right, that's enough for I like Truth Social. I like the concept. I like the people, the messaging. Of course, I like President Trump, but I will admit I have a hard time on it. I do. I don't love any aspect of social media in general, but I guess I'm used to X, Twitter, X, whatever. I'm used to it. So I know exactly what to expect. I can almost tell you what Twitter's going to tell me before I even look to see what it's telling me. That's how, I don't think that's a good thing. All right, let's see what we got today. Let's start off. We've got Victor Davis Hanson. I'm not interviewing, it's just a clip from his. We got Victor Davis Hanson here in studio on my computer. An interview that he did with somebody else. Same with Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful. I'm just playing the clips. We are going to get, by the way, just as a quick side note, we are going to get back into doing interviews. I came very close. I'm on the verge, and gosh, if he's watching, that would be kind of embarrassing. He'll probably call me. But I've been on the verge of rehiring, or at least trying to rehire my old booker. Okay, bookers in our industry, they go out and they book people. That's their goal. They have their Rolodex. For you young kids, that's your contact list. He has his people, and he can go through and he can get me lots of good people. He got me Tom Holman before, James O'Keefe, a lot of people that are currently in the news. He was able to get for me on my show, and I'm thinking about doing that. If not, I might just have see if I can find somebody else out there, or might just reach out myself. I've been trying to get a hold of. We actually had, and this is the unfortunate part about trying to do it myself. I actually had lockdown. I had Laura Logan ready to go. I had Roger Stone ready to go. Both of them ready to go. And I just wasn't able to finish the deal. As far as getting them booked and on. So maybe I should. You know what? I am. I'm gonna reach out to him today and say, hey, buddy, I know I fired you a couple years ago, but if you're open for it, hey, come on back. Come on back in. All right, let's start off with Victor Davis Hanson. It's a segment that I actually did yesterday, but since we didn't do a live show yesterday, being Sunday, I'm going to play it now, and then we'll get into some more cool stuff from today after this. Victor Davis Hanson says President Trump has sided with the working class while Democrats have sided with someone else. And of course, he's absolutely right. We're seeing that very clearly following Liberation Day. As Wall Street starts to tank, the middle class, on the other hand, is starting to become more endeared to President Trump than they were even before the announcement of all the various tariffs that are coming down the pike here very, very soon. Let's go to Victor Davis Hanson, but stick around afterwards because I'm going to explain why it's actually worse than just Democrats siding with Wall Street. They're doing far more than that.
This is a class thing. It really is. Donald Trump, mirabile dictu, I can't believe he did it. As a classical Republican, he's not classical Republican, but what Donald Trump did was he said this Republican is going to side on this Republican is going to choose the side of the working man. It's not going to choose Wall Street. Wall Street hates Donald Trump. Have you ever seen anybody in this audience that's watching or listening? Has anybody ever in their wildest imagination think that Democrats would be on the floor of the Congress blasting Donald Trump and worried that Wall Street's going to be hurt and not talking one word about the working classes that are all for this because they think finally somebody's listening? And the final thing is, has it had any effects? Donald Trump says $4 trillion in foreign investment. The figures I've seen are commitments. They're not actualizations yet, but $3.1 trillion. If that comes in, $3.1 trillion, there'll be millions of jobs that come in here for people to avoid these tariffs. Because he's just saying, if you come in the United States and you want to help us, you can keep the profits. You just have to have the jobs here. If you're Mercedes-Benz and you get a 3 to 8% profit on your sales, fine. But the cost and the services and the labor is going to be here. You're going to pay for things here. And so it's going to be a boon to the interior of America. And the Democrats, because they have no other alternative agenda, they are taking the side of the uber rich, even while they blast oligarchs and aristocrats and plutocrats. No, you're on the side of plutocrats and aristocrats. You guys were the party of globalization under Bill Clinton that started it all off. You were the people who thought globalization was neat because you could wean the billionaire class over to your side, which was about 70% of them are on their side. So they are speaking in their interest. They're not speaking for the people of Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin, the working people.
Victor Davis Hanson is, of course, correct that Democrats have sided with Wall Street, but it really is Far worse than that, Wall Street is simply it's a playground for pimps.
You mean the dollar?
The dollar is a pimp.
Okay, this is where the globalist elite cabal can control both corporations as well as politicians in one fell swoop. They play with the money in there. They throw them in the box and say, you guys play around with the money. And once you get so hooked on it, and once we get so much dirt on you from your actions, and declare to you that we will destroy you if you ever get out of line, well, now they've got them. There are only two real ways that they need to use. They can use multiple ways, but they only need to use two ways to control politicians, corporations, and the like. One is money. The other is scandals, sex, usually. And between those two, they have control over so many politicians and so many corporations that it's not even funny. This is how they're able to manipulate the world. And the Democrats, and we'll just call it the uniparty swamp because there are a lot of Republicans, Susan Collins, for example, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, siding with the Democrats, of course, because they do not want these tariffs. They do not want the United States to be operating on a level playing field with everybody else. That's not part of the game plan. That's not part of their agenda. They need the United States to be the distributing arm of globalism. And President Trump, Elon Musk, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, and the like are fighting against this concept. But they're not going to be successful without our help. They need you and me to pray first and foremost. We need God to intervene as much as possible. We also need to inform our friends, our relatives, our neighbors, anybody that we can about the true nature of what's going on here. This is about the idolatry of globalism. That's what these tariffs are about, is about stopping globalism. It's not just about, we're going to generate revenue and we're going to bring back jobs. That's great. That's awesome. Love it. But this is a way for America to finally, for the first time in really since probably World War II, to be able to say, you all need to follow us or accept us or ignore us. We don't care, but our stance is going to be America first. And if you want to participate with us and take your own little piece of American exceptionalism, great. Come on board. You buy a gold card for $5 million. Pretty cheap. Buy a gold card, start up your business here, open up plants here, work with American workers, American products, American whatever. Awesome. Come on over. We're okay with that. And if you don't want to, fine. Great. But we're not going to pay your exuberant tariffs anymore. We're not going to be sending a whole bunch of USAID, quote unquote, aid to you anymore. See, the thing that I don't think a lot of people understand is that the United States, specifically the deep state, through our own government, the United States has been the distributing arm of globalism. We are the hub for the globalist elite cabal. I know it sounds crazy to some who don't realize it. We want to say, oh, that's all in Europe, or that's in China, or that's... No, we're it. It's here. We are the source of the globalism that is destroying us. I'm going to have to do an entire episode on that concept at some point in the future. But this is why they are so vehemently opposed to the America First stance, to the MAGA movement, to President Trump and Elon Musk, and everybody else, to you and me. Because we do want to stop globalism, and we are starting to realize, to come to the conclusion, that for us to stop globalism from over there, we got to look here first. We got to stop it here because we're the source of it. And the sooner that we realize this, the sooner that we address this issue internally, we will finally be able to look abroad and say, hey, y'all don't control us anymore. I'm sure I don't have to tell you this, but looking around, you're probably noticing that the economy is acting a little strange lately. Now, look, we fully and completely support and endorse President Trump's plans. His tariffs, his path forward for the economy is necessary. This isn't just a matter of, oh, it's one idea, we'll give it a shot. This is required. This is something that will prevent the United States of America from becoming a footnote in history. And that's as impossible as that might seem today. It's a reality. If we do not get ahead of the economic turmoil that's coming as a result of advancements in technology, as a result of changes in the global economic system, if we don't get ahead of them, then we are not going to succeed as a nation. We are going to fail. There will be an economic collapse. Praise God that President Trump is putting forth the effort and the appropriate plan to prevent that from happening, at least in the near future. We're talking in a matter of months and years. But through it all, there is going to be turmoil. We're experiencing it today. And this is why many Americans, tons of Americans, have been strongly considering moving their retirement accounts into physical precious metals. Now, everybody and their dog has a precious metals sponsor that they use. I use one that I believe in basically because they are straightforward, honest, and faith-driven. Go to jdrgold.com. That is jdrgold.com. And learn how to do this right. It's tax-free. You can do a rollover or a transfer from current or previous retirement accounts. Get into a gold IRA that is done right. Not all gold IRAs are the same. There's the gap between a bad one and a good one is so huge that I would have had no idea had I not been in this industry for the last 3 years, learning and then learning some more. And based upon the research that I've done, your best bet is to go to jdrgold.com. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not telling you, go buy gold. But if you are considering it, if you're considering protecting your wealth and your retirement, your life's savings through physical precious metals, then jdrgold.com is the way to do that. Give it a visit today. Fill out the form. Let's take it from there. President Trump is playing a 5-front game of chicken with his tariffs following the Liberation Day announcement last week. We've already seen major impacts on everything from the stock market to our relationships with other countries. But as President Trump said on Sunday, sometimes you have to take medicine in order to fix something. And that something that needs to be fixed is our trade relationships with the rest of the world. They have been lopsided against us for decades, and it's time to fix that. The time to fix it is now. And it is, for those who are saying maybe he should have taken an incremental approach, I disagree. It's a ripping off of the Band-Aid. Like you said, you take all your medicine, take it now, take it up. Let's suffer through some of the consequences so that we can get through the other side as quickly as possible. That's my stance, and I'm sticking to it. So I am all in favor of President Trump not only playing chicken with these 5 various entities, but to win, or at least come up with a draw. And in this case, a draw is not so bad. Okay, a draw means that everybody stands down. Everybody in this particular country or whatever, we all just ease down the tariffs and get to a point of, hey, it's now suddenly fair. Awesome. But before we get into the list of challengers, opponents in these games of chicken, let's look at what the possible outcomes are. Outcome number 1 is that the opponents back down and do President Trump's will. It's very possible. We're already seeing that in some cases. Vietnam looks like they are going all in for backing all the way down. Great. Option 2 is that President Trump backs down and says, you know what, we're just going to pull the tariffs back, send them back to where they were before, and we'll just keep paying your tariffs. That is, of course, a big-time loss if that were to happen. Option 3 is that both sides come together, sort of back down, but meet in the middle and come up with basically negotiate terms of a draw. And that's the most likely scenario in most of these cases. President Trump isn't playing just to win. He's playing to get things level. And sometimes that means coming to the negotiating table and just saying, hey, you guys are here, we're here, we're now back up to here, so let's bring it down to here. Easy. And then option 4, which is the one we must avoid at all costs, is that nobody backs down and there's a major collision that can result in literal wars. So obviously that's not what we want to happen, especially with somebody like China. So who are these 5 opponents? In no particular order. We'll just take it from I guess most obvious to least obvious. How's that? So the most obvious opponent in this regard is Wall Street. Now, I'm not talking about President Trump's not going against the stock market. There were rumors over the weekend that President Trump is trying to tank the stock market intentionally to force a lowering of interest rates and to do a reset and this, that, or the other. He's not trying to tank the stock market intentionally. He does acknowledge that that's part of the medicine that people are going to have to take. We are going to suffer through stock market losses. And when we come out the other side, the stock market will fly back up. Okay, that's the ebb and flow. This is probably necessary considering the state of the stock market for the last couple of years. With that said, it's Wall Street as a whole. We're talking about the hedge funds. We're talking about the power players within Wall Street. They are playing chicken. They're shorting the stock market right now. They know that they can make money as it goes down and they can make money as it goes back up. They're going to try to make it on both sides, both directions. Unfortunately, as a result of this game of chicken, they are harming your average everyday investor, whether you're into your 401k or your IRA or whatever. If you have it stuck in the stock market, which I've been saying for a long time, you should consider, I'm not a financial advisor, but you should consider putting into physical precious metals, such as gold and silver. And you can always go to jdrgold.com for that. Just saying. But if you are still in the stock market, yeah, you're getting hurt by this. You are. And Wall Street doesn't care. They're going to play chicken because they know, again, that they can make the most money by shorting the stock market now and then buying back up later and riding it back up to the top. That's their modus operandi. That's what the worst of the worst people do. I mean, if you just do your research into George Soros and figure out where he got his riches. Number two, again, going from most obvious to least obvious, would be China. Of course, China is one of the key targets because they are our imbalance. Our trade imbalance with them has been tremendous. I mean, we're talking in the trillions of dollars, trillions with a T, a lot of money, and a lot of lopsidedness. President Trump is trying to correct that because what has changed since the beginning, back when there might have been a time where it sort of made sense to have a trade deficit with China, but that was during the time when their buying power was minimal. They were producers and producers alone. But over the years and decades, and especially over the last several years, they have become a true powerhouse when it comes to purchasing power. They are a consumer nation as well now, and they should be buying as much American stuff as possible. Unfortunately, they generally don't even get that option. They don't, because the Chinese Communist Party treats us so unfairly. President Trump is trying to fix that. And of course, that's the one where, when we're talking about option 4, that being nobody blinks, nobody backs down, and there's a collision, well, that's the one that we really want to avoid because, again, that would mean war. Number 3, that would be Europe. Now, Europe is in a unique situation here. This is they can actually come out of this on top. They really can by working with President Trump. And in many, even if they just back all the way down, by backing down, by taking responsibility for their own everything, they really do have an opportunity here to break free of their globalist leanings, to break free of their dependence on the rest of the world, because Europe, as a once proud continent, and the European Union itself as a once proud union, they have become dependent and beholden on the rest of the world, including the United States, but not exclusively the United States. This is an opportunity for them to say, hey, you know what? We can just work with each other. And I'm all in favor of that. I'm not an isolationist by any means, but I do have isolationist leanings. And as far as I'm concerned, Europe should be taking care of themselves far more than they do. They rely on everybody. I mean, they can't handle anything on their own anymore. And this is, of course, the continent that at one point in our world history used to be very dominant. Now they are submissive as can be. This is an opportunity for them to change, and I hope that they take that opportunity, and I think they will, by the way. We're already seeing leanings in that direction from multiple leaders in Europe. Not all of them, but some of them. Number 4, again, most obvious to least obvious. Corporate America, the outsourcers, not all of corporate America, but those who rely on outsourcing their labor, on importing their products. Those are the ones that are working against President Trump as we speak. They are. They're trying to figure out loopholes. They're trying to figure out ways to keep their gravy train going. When I say they, I don't want to, it's not everybody. A lot of them are like, hey, you know what? This is it. This is our opportunity to finally have an excuse to bring our production home and be more supportive of the United States of America, our home country. You know, when we look at corporations, it's the foreign corporations. They have a great opportunity, not just for themselves, but for us as a result of these tariffs. And we're seeing many of them take advantage of them. President Trump said $7 billion, or $7 trillion worth of potential, or at least committed, or at least potential investments from foreign companies into the United States to build factories here, production here, hire American workers, pay American taxes, because it'll be cheaper for them than to pay the tariffs. Well, they're I hate to say it, but they're kind of the good guys in this. They're the ones that President Trump is targeting. This is why he keeps bringing in these foreign dignitaries, foreign owners of foreign companies, and saying, hey, look, these guys are spending this many billions, and these guys are going to invest this many billions, and they're bringing their production here, and yada, yada, yada. That's great news. But the ones that are doing the opposite, the American companies that are out there outsourcing to other nations, they're the ones that are currently fighting President Trump, mostly behind the scenes. And again, when I say they, not all of them, especially in the automotive industry, you're seeing a lot of them saying, hey, you know what? Let's just do it. Let's just bring it all back here. You know, go to Indiana, go to Michigan. Let's just go to Ohio, Pennsylvania. Let's hire American workers. Let's just do it. Let's do the right thing. I think they're actually excited. At least some of them are actually excited about the prospects, because for a long time, to stay competitive, you know, it's like one guy goes or one company goes and builds plants in Mexico, and they're able to save, you know, $1,100 on a vehicle, and now they can undercut their competitor. Well, the other competitors looking to Mexico or wherever, and that's the way things have been going for a very long time. Well, now it's changing, thanks to President Trump. And then the last, unfortunately, what I would say is probably the biggest threat to President Trump and his tariff plan is the uniparty swamp itself, especially in Congress. And we're talking particularly about the Republicans, such as Congressman Don Bacon, such as Senator Chuck Grassley. They are working to try to claw back the good old tariff powers that they failed at miserably in our history. Well, they're trying to take it back. Now, it's not the concern that they're going to be able to be successful, because here's the thing. Even if, and it is possible, they might be able to get their legislation through. Legislation that would require, I don't know, I haven't read the legislation itself, but I believe it would require congressional approval for tariffs, or maybe even make it to where Congress itself is the only ones that can initiate tariffs. I don't know. We'll see. But they might be able to actually get this legislation passed, and of course, then that would force President Trump to veto it. And I do not see a likely scenario at least, where they're able to overcome such a veto. But the risk here is that by going against President Trump, especially from the Republican side, by opposing him, by speaking out against the tariffs, by showing not only disunity but disloyalty at the same time, they're taking all the other characters that President Trump is currently playing chicken against and giving them hope, giving them a reason to persevere, instead of helping the nation and trying to force China to back down, trying to force Wall Street to back down, to not back down is the wrong word with Wall Street, it'd be more to surge, you know, to pick the time as the time being sooner rather than later, for them to stop betting against the market and start betting in favor of the market and help to push the market back up. Same thing with Europe. Point is sorry, babbling here. Point is that these uniparty swampsters, the Bacons, the Grassleys, the Democrats, they're working against not just President Trump, but against the best interests of the United States of America. I'm not saying that they have to go out there and be all like, oh, yeah, we love this, because that's just not their style. But they are being pushed in this direction. It's a personal thing for them. This isn't so that they can try to help America. Okay? They're helping their own portfolios. They're helping the portfolios of their buddies. And most importantly, they're doing the bidding of the globalist elite cabal that owns them. I firmly believe that Don Bacon, in particular, and obviously others in Congress, are controlled by the globalist elite cabal, but Don Bacon in particular is leading this charge because I would say he probably volunteered. He's like, yeah, we'll take the fight through Congress. We know that we'll lose in the long term, but we'll be able to do damage to President Trump, and as a result, do damage to the United States of America and our people and our interests on behalf of his puppet masters amongst the globalist elite cabal. They can and should be unifying behind this. I'm not saying they have to agree with it. They could be against tariffs. I couldn't imagine where Rand Paul is going to be like, oh yeah, I'm all in favor of this. I like tariffs. Now I'm not saying that he needs to say that. But by golly, all these people, the Grassleys and the Bacons of the world, need to stand down and shut up. Because they're fueling this anti-American push. They are giving China and Europe and the hedge funds and anti-American corporate America, they're giving them ammunition and fuel to keep going, to persist, to extend this game of chicken that President Trump is playing with them. The sooner that they realize, the sooner that they all come to the table, to the negotiating table with President Trump, and let's hammer this out, the sooner that that happens, the better off America's going to be. But in the meantime, we're going to continue to be taking our medicine. And I firmly blame the Uniparty swamp for prolonging this. It's not their fault that it's happening, but they could help to mitigate the damage. They could help to bring this to a successful conclusion. Instead, they're working against President Trump and thereby working against the United States of America. The best way to stay on top of things that are happening in the world of finance is to listen to the experts. And no, I'm not talking about people like Jim Cramer. I'm talking about people like Jim Rickards, former CIA analyst. Jim Rickards, go to jdrucker.com/crisis, jdrucker.com/crisis, and get his newsletter because it's pretty dang awesome. Kevin O'Leary of Shark Tank fame delivered what I consider to be probably pound for pound the best 10-minute explanation of President Trump's tariff agenda, his tariff plan, and why it's so necessary. And he did it from a perspective of, I wouldn't say unbiased, but he wasn't like super rah. He was just explaining the facts. And he was doing so against, clearly, I don't know what her name was, but clearly leftist journalist who was opposed to the tariffs. She started off with a whole lot of interruptions, but I think he handled himself very well. I generally don't like to just post somebody else's work, 10 minutes worth, but this time, no, it's kind of worth it. Watch.
I want to start on these tariffs. The market is on track right now for its worst weekly performance since March of 2020. How do you continue to be an advocate for these tariffs, given the sell-off we're seeing, given that I have had every source on our show this morning say that these tariffs will be causing a recession in the United States?
They don't know that yet. They don't know how long the tariff's going to be on. We've never done this before. We've never taken on the entire globe. Usually it's done in trade agreements with specific countries, such as NAFTA, which was Canada and Mexico, or a European Union situation. This is unique, over 60 countries. Now, there's two aspects to these tariffs. Number one is reciprocality against tariffs from one country to another based on products and services that are specific. So if you're charging a 20% tariff in India, it's going to be reciprocated in the United States. And those go away pretty quickly. That actually leads to fair trade. The more complex aspect of these negotiations are around the idea of trade imbalances. And so when you put on tariffs to try and fix trade imbalance, it's difficult because the largest economy on earth is the United States. So really you're starting a behemoth negotiation, and it's happening in every country. You highlighted Canada, but you might as well talk about Britain or even Switzerland, where I am right now, where they have over 30% tariffs imposed 48 hours ago. And so you can assume that behind the scenes are two spheres of negotiations. One is, let's try and reduce the imbalance of trade by buying more stuff from the United States. That's one signal. And the other, which is very easy to fix, is simply remove all tariffs. If you're going to have reciprocal tariffs at 20%, 30%, 40%, just get rid of them, bring them down to zero.
But Kevin, as of this morning, with the 34% retaliatory tariff from China to the United States, we are not getting closer to free trade. We are just getting further into a trade war.
No, China's a whole different story. This isn't about trade war with China. This is about leveling the playing field on a wide range of issues, including IP law, access to business, access to courts, being compliant with U.S. regulations on securities. There is a laundry list of grievances with China that have been around since they joined the WTO, and none of the administrations previously have ever dealt with China.
So why are tariffs the right way?
Dealt with for the first time. So this has nothing to do with just tariffs. I mean, right now I can't litigate.
That's the tool that the administration is using. Why are tariffs the correct tool if, to your point, these have nothing to do with tariffs?
What tool do you suggest they do when nothing else has worked?
I'm not the president. It's not my job.
Well, exactly. So let him do his work. China's different than all the other countries.
But it's not
China
working,
has to be dealt
right?
with. Look, I'm having lots of problems with China, as are millions of other companies in the United States that try to do business there. They do not play by the rules. They're going to have to start doing it pretty soon. That's a different conversation. You want to talk about the markets correcting? Yes, they are. By the way, markets correct every 18 months up to 20%. You're watching it happen right now. It's not pleasant. You can't blame just the tariffs for this. These have been very expensive markets now for almost 18 months. Now they're having a correction. I think what matters is this a recession signal, yes or no? And how long will these tariffs be on? I would say 50% of these tariffs across these 60 countries will be negotiated pretty quickly, including the Canadian situation you made details on. Canada's different because they're in the middle of an election. Carney's not an elected official. He has no mandate from the Canadian people. He's just an interim prime minister when they threw out Justin Trudeau a few weeks ago. He's got to get elected first, so he's going to say anything he possibly can to try and distract Canadian voters from the fact that his party bankrupt the country. 25% of Canadians live in poverty. They have had no GDP growth for 10 years. There's no investment capital in Canada anymore, and the dollar's lost 41% of its value. Canadians can't go to the United States because they can't afford it under Carney's leadership in his party. So those are different issues too. There's a lot of things going on at the same time.
A lot of things that economists tell me are not fixable via tariffs, but I am curious from your perspective then, why do you think that we are moving towards a negotiation where these tariffs are not going to be as bad as they seem right now, at least for financial markets? What is it that gives you confidence that there is going to be a negotiation reached?
Because there's a good reason to do it. I mean, you got to distinguish the noise versus the signal. I've said this countless times about Trump. Let's take the Canadian situation, which we've been talking about. If you combine those economies, I'm not saying buying the country, but if you combine the economies, which seems impossible to do given the rhetoric and what's going on right now, but the truth is, the signal is it would be much stronger against China if there were no tariffs between Canada and the United States, and they had a common currency, and they protected the northern border, not the 49th parallel. Now, the Canadians know that's worth it because 75% of their output has been sold to the United States for over 120 years. 17 states call Canada the #1 trading partner. 28 states, in addition to those 17, #2 trading partner is Canada. So it'd be economic suicide not to work this out. The obvious answer is to remove all tariffs, and that will happen, my guess is, right after the election when the Canadians make their choice about who they want to lead them. That person will fly to Washington immediately and start negotiations, which I would call NAFTA 3. But right now, that's not happening because Carney's trying to use this whole Trump issue as fulcrum to try and distract Canadians away from the facts that he wiped out the country. Maybe he'll get elected, maybe he won't. Nobody knows right now. But nothing's going to happen on the Canadian situation until the election's over in just over 5 weeks.
So let's talk about the Canadian citizen reaction, because we've already seen evidence of Canadian citizens boycotting American products. We've heard from CEOs that they are concerned about that. Even airline CEOs and the governor of New York being concerned about Canadians not wanting to travel to the United States. Are you getting that pushback from your fellow citizens in Canada?
No. You can understand if you've got the froth and rhetoric around an election cycle why you would get some of that. And some Canadians are unhappy, there's no question about it, but Canadians are not stupid. They understand the economic advantage of working and selling to the United States and having no tariff whatsoever. The behemoth economy is a golden jewel of an idea, and everybody gets that joke. Americans do not hate Canadians. Canadians do not hate Americans. Politicians have lots of rhetoric when they're trying to get elected. That's what they're doing here. All of this will pass too. What drives everybody long term our economic interests. And that's what really you should focus on here. This will pass, things will calm down, more rational minds will sit at a table across from each other in about 6 weeks in Washington and in Ottawa.
More rational than the president?
At the end of the day, the president's not an idiot either. Neither is Ludnick or Burgum or any of those people negotiating these deals right now. You have to look at the economic opportunity. They're not idiots. They're negotiating. This is a giant, nasty negotiation with a little bit of politics and a little dash-will-do of politics because of the crazy timing of the Canadian election. Trump has a 4-year mandate. At least 2 of them are in a majority situation. If he's going to do all this volatile stuff, which he's doing right now, he's got to do it now, because he may not have a majority mandate after the midterms. So that's why you're getting such an accelerated pace of policy. These tariffs, as I said earlier, 50% of them can be easily melted away to a reciprocal of 0 tariffs. And then this trade deficit is a trickier situation country by country. The only reason there's a deficit in Canada is the fact that so much oil is imported from Alberta into the U.S. economy. If you took away oil, Canadians buy more goods and services from the United States than vice versa. There is no trade deficit ex-oil. So that is obvious, too. The numbers are the numbers. It will get resolved. And I think calmer minds will prevail after the election is over in Canada.
Kevin, I want to end on TikTok. Both President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance saying a deal to sell the app will be reached before this weekend's deadline. And then on Air Force One, President Trump said tariffs on China could be part of that negotiation. Take a listen.
We have a situation with TikTok where China will probably say, we'll approve a deal, but will you do something on the tariff? The tariffs give us great power to negotiate.
So if tariffs and TikTok are now getting tied by the president, where does that put your bid for TikTok in terms of your negotiation power? Where does your bid stand right now?
Well, there's many bids. There's no question there's a deal for TikTok on the table, and that will get one thing with certainty. Tomorrow before midnight, an extension. My guess is 90 days. It'll be punted down the road because the details of the TikTok deal are very difficult. Let me explain 2 big issues. China has not said what they want to do yet. The current idea is to get a copy of the code and make an American version of it. And we're not sure that passes muster with the law. If you can download, anybody in America can go get the Supreme Court order. The top of page 5 makes it very clear you can't use the Chinese algorithm. So what we're going to have to do, if that's the plan, is get an indemnification from Congress or change the law to make it legal to use that. And that would require 51 votes in changing it, and maybe they could slip it into the Reconciliation Act. All of these are unknowns. But right now, the penalty would be about $820 billion. That's $5,000 per user account per 24 hours times 172 million. And no capital stack of any of the syndicates formed can take that risk. So we need clarity on what's allowed and what isn't based on the law that was passed by Congress and the Supreme Court order. Remember, it was 9-0. There was no ambiguity in it. And so somebody has to figure that out and either give financiers, both the debt and equity structures, some kind of indemnification against that penalty coming back. Because remember, that law will last long past Trump's administration. So if you have an ambitious attorney general that perhaps is a Democrat, you'll get sued for $800 billion.
Yeah.
Nobody can afford that. So we got to solve that problem. We got to figure that out. So these are the things that we're going to have to get worked out in the next 90 days to get this deal done.
Protect your retirement, your life's savings with physical precious metals through an America First company. Go to jdrgold.com to learn more. jdrgold.com. The only viable path to free trade is through President Trump's tariffs. Now, for the vast majority of my life, I've been essentially a free trade absolutist along the lines of like Milton Friedman, for example. I've always believed that, hey, you know what? Even if they're charging us tariffs, it's okay if we don't because we'll make it back through the dollar. They're going to be buying in dollars. They're going to be spending dollars. It's going to filter back into our economy. Don't worry about it. You know, you're sweating too much with your protectionist attitudes. Well, things have changed thanks to the way that the modern world works. We no longer necessarily get the dollars spent back with us that they pay or that they receive as a result of trading with us. It's just a different world. And we've seen great examples of this in recent years, recent decades. Here's a report that I would say that this properly encapsulates the modern day problem with a lopsided tariffed world. Watch.
From 2001 through 2007, the Dayton metro area lost almost 23,000 jobs.
Delphi is really scaling back their production here in the United States. A lot of that work is going to Mexico and China.
To put it another way, nearly 1 in 3 local jobs in manufacturing vanished during that time. And things only got worse from there.
Today we're announcing our plan to, over time, cease production at 4 GM truck assembly plants.
These gas prices, they're not going down.
In 2008, GM closed its massive Dayton operation, citing rising gas prices and plunging sales.
It sounds like tough times in Dayton, Ohio.
GM will close the plant for good later this year, 2 days before Christmas.
It was one of the last big auto plants in a town that once had more auto industry jobs than anywhere but Detroit.
We produced quite a few GM brands. GMC Envoy, the Isuzu Ascender, Saab, Buick, Oldsmobile.
Mexico basically is a shift in strategy.
Rodney Brickey was one of more than 2,000 GM workers laid off that day. He'd put in 14 years, starting back when his father worked there.
The insurance was pretty much unbeatable, and the wages were pretty high. I'd say it probably averaged out around $35 an hour. When the plant closed here, economically it was devastating for this area, because when you're making that kind of money and something like this closes, it's next to impossible to find something that's compatible.
This has been an ongoing problem for 2 decades now, and we ignore it. We keep thinking, oh, just, next time, next year, next election, next whatever, we'll get it figured out. Well, now's the time to get it figured out. It's got to be done now. We won't have another opportunity like this for a long time, if ever. Is it going to be tough? You betcha. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take. A day, a week, a month, a year, maybe longer. But we are going to, during that time, we're going to face some financial hardships, and it sucks. It really does, considering that we're coming off of 4 years of Bidenomics, and now we got to face this. But if we don't do it now, it's not going to get done. I assure you that the closer we get to the election, the harder the Republicans are going to fight back, because the recovery time from these actions, from these tariffs, from the stock markets dropping, from everything that's happening right now, even if President Trump is able to get a whole bunch of deals signed tomorrow, we're not going to see the beneficial effects of it for at least another year and a half. It will get into election time if we don't act soon. And that's something that the Republican Party, they will fight against. They will say, no, we can't have an economy that's struggling at all. We got to get in there and get it fixed immediately. So we're going to push this off. That's what they did last time, if you recall. Last time during President Trump's first term, Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan were able to convince President Trump that, hey, we'll take care of Obamacare and the border wall after the midterm elections. We've got to win these first, and then we'll get your agenda done. And, of course, that didn't happen. Don't even get me started. But President Trump learned his lesson. That's why he's doing it now. He knows that he will have headwinds no matter when he does it. Before the midterms, after the midterms, there's going to be some excuse why the rhinos in the Uniparty swamp do not want this done. So let's do it now. Let's try to get it all fixed well before the 2026 election. That way the economy has time to recover. That way the memory of all of this, any hardships that we're going to go through in the short term, those memories will have faded, replaced by the positives that will come from us properly reestablishing free trade. We cannot get to free trade without going this route. Okay? Any of the old benefits of one-sided free trade, they're gone. Do I believe in protectionism? Absolutely not. Not in the long term. But in the short term, it makes absolute sense as long as it gets us to the point to where we can actually be operating with the rest of the world on a level playing field. They want a multipolar world. They don't want us to be the only superpower, the big dogs. Well, if that's the case, and it seems like they're pushing that direction, then they're going to have to cough up some money, cough up some free trade, with us, not make it one-sided, not demand that we be the piggy bank of the U.S. of the world. Sorry, stop demanding that we give out but never take back in. It's time for us to make it fair. We won't have this opportunity again, so let's do it now. You know, like President Trump says, take your medicine. Well, let's take our medicine. Let's get it over with, and then let's move on. I want to get to free trade, but we can't have free trade if everybody else is treating us so unfairly. Please be sure to subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Subscribe, likes, thumbs up, subscribe, likes, thumbs up. You know, I took down the thing on the, I used to have a button on my little, what is this, lower thirds that showed a subscribe, and it would go off every, I don't know, 8 minutes or so. I trust you all. I know that you'll do the right thing, help me to spread the word, help to get this show cranking. You know, there was a time not too long ago, I mean, we're talking within the last couple of years, where between all of my various audiences, we would reach tens, if not over 100,000 people per episode. And I've been in the process of rebuilding. It's taken a lot longer, I'll admit. It's taking a lot longer than it did before. Now, I had help before. I did. I had a lot of amazing blessings. Not to say that I'm out of blessings now. I'm just saying that before I had circumstances, I thought, oh, you know, I'll just have to do my thing, and then the people will naturally come out. Yeah, I took it for granted. Yeah, it was a big mistake, I think. At one point, I took like 2 or 3 months off and came back and realized that most of the audience was gone. It's like, okay, well, then took another break, and I'm trying my best to make this show my primary focus. That this is what I want to do. So why should I allow other things that I don't want to do as much? Why should those interfere? And so we have been committing to putting out this show at least 5 times a week. We are trying daytime shows, such as this one. Of course, my standard nighttime, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. It's going to continue to do that, even though it is late at night. That seems to be the niche. We get a lot of views relative to other people, at least. We get quite a few views for those shows, so those will continue. But I do want to expand. Again, I don't want to make this about me. Oh, help me, but it really is. Help me. Help me. By subscribing, by liking, by doing all those amazing things. Lord willing, I will be back very soon with another episode. But in the meantime, you all stay strong, stay safe, and God bless.